Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. Harry Potter games started releasing almost on yearly basis from 2001 to 2011. 2006 and 2008 were exception to this rule, but even so, we got to see 9 games in 10 years, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. I played all of these games in the last couple of months and we're going to cover all of them in this video.
Go home to your mother, Potter.
However, this video won't feature any LEGO Harry Potter games because that's like an entirely different franchise which deserves its own video. So if you guys like this video, I'm probably going to cover LEGO series as well in the future. I'm also going to cover Hogwarts Legacy at the end, even though it doesn't exactly fit the description of the video. But it would be a crime not to cover the best RPG in Harry Potter universe. Speaking of RPGs, have you ever wanted to make one, but you didn't know where to start? Well, Boot.dev, the sponsor of this video, is the perfect opportunity for you. Boot.dev is the easiest way to get into backend development. Did you know that the salary for backend developers in the US in 2023 was over 100k? So if you're looking to get into backend development, why not start with this amazing platform, which makes writing a ton of code way more interesting than usual. In fact, the platform itself is designed like a captivating role-playing game. You will earn XP, levels, achievements, and even complete quests to get a top spot on the global leaderboard. Boot.dev is an online, self-paced platform which allows you to write a ton of code. It also has some additional features like Bear Wizard AI. This AI will ask you questions and help you understand what you're doing, rather than just giving you a generic answer. Boot.dev offers a 30-day no questions asked refund policy and a free demo of every course. So click the link in the description box and use my code CLICK4GAMEPLAY to get 25% off your first payment for Boot.dev. That's 25% your first month of your first year, depending on the subscription you choose. Huge thanks to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out in 2001 for 7 different gaming platforms. I played the PlayStation 1 version because I got it working on the first try through emulation. I wanted to get the PC version working before that, but I had no luck, unfortunately. I was really curious about the PlayStation version because it seems like everyone played that particular game.
Well, if it isn't the famous Harry Potter.
This game was a smashing success back in the day. It sold 8 million copies, making it one of the best-selling PlayStation games ever. I really didn't know what to expect when I started playing it. It looked like a game made for kids, that's because it is. It was aimed at 8 to 14 years old with its puzzle-based gameplay. And of course, that's exactly what the gameplay is all about. It's a collection of puzzles that you have to solve within the setting of the first Harry Potter book. There is an old school intro cutscene which introduces you to the world and the beginning of Harry Potter's first year in Hogwarts. Dumbledore gives you a warm welcome when the game actually begins, and you're greeted with those old school blocky character models from 2001. I mean, sure, we can make a lot of jokes about PlayStation 1 graphics nowadays, but here's the thing. Each and every one of these characters in the game have a unique and recognizable look. It's not that hard to make a connection with their real-life counterparts. Well, maybe not all of them, but still, I think that's quite impressive, considering the very limited number of triangles the developers had to work with back in the day.
Hello Harry, it's me, Hagrid.
I played many modern games that have problems with making the characters look unique and memorable. Granted, the Harry Potter universe have a bunch of very memorable characters, but being able to implement that in a PlayStation 1 game was definitely not an easy task, and it certainly deserves some praise. Putting the blockheads aside, you start learning about the controls and basic mechanics as soon as the scene with Dumbledore is over. The controls in this game are quite intuitive actually. I played this game on the PlayStation 1 emulator with my PS5 controller, and it works good like 90% of the time. Those 10% are some areas which have a very noticeable slowdown, like frame drops, especially when you get to play the Quidditch match. I was pleasantly surprised with how they managed to pull this off. I mean, the gameplay mechanics are quite simple, but they work, and I had some fun with this quest.
Go to the Hogwarts Seeker!
The controls are awful, but you get the hang of it after a couple of tries. Besides the Quidditch match, I had no other technical issues whatsoever. Anyway, you can use the arrow keys or the analog stick to move around, and the camera will turn automatically. But you can also use the triangle to look around, or the shoulder buttons to rotate the camera, although I never found that feature to be useful. For the first couple of quests, you explore some rooms in Hogwarts, and you need to figure out the solution for various puzzles in order to escape the room, basically. The concept for puzzles remains very similar throughout the whole game, but they manage to keep the puzzles varied and interesting, despite their very easy nature. This is something that the next couple of games will successfully build upon.
Nintendo!
I thought we were going to spend the whole game inside Hogwarts for some reason, but you also get to visit some outside locations. This game has a lot of charm, especially if you feel a bit nostalgic about PlayStation 1 games and Harry Potter. The spells you can learn can only be used in certain situations in order to solve a particular puzzle. The puzzles are very simple and easy, but this will gradually improve with each new title until we get to some not so good Harry Potter games. I think this game is designed extremely well actually, and it's a shame that kids nowadays will never get to play it. Luckily, you have a 32-year-old YouTuber who will do it instead. You're welcome.
Nintendo! Go home to your mother, Potter. Oh, sorry, you don't have one, do you?
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets released in late 2002. It's another Harry Potter game that released on various gaming platforms. There are 5 different versions of the game, and there is a great video from Flandreau about all the differences. I started with the PlayStation 2 version through emulation, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it to work properly. I think I spent around 5 hours trying to get rid of all the technical issues by tweaking every single option in the emulator, installing older versions and so on, but I just couldn't get rid of this annoying texture flickering issue. Then I tried to find the PC version and I got it working on the first try, but not long after the beginning of the game, it started crashing a lot. I really wanted to play the PlayStation 2 version because for some reason it seemed more fun. After trying to fix the PC version, I finally got it to work with no crashes, even though I still had some minor issues with the textures and a lot of frame drops. So I had to commit to the PC version from this point on, even though I really wanted to play the PlayStation 2 version.
Better luck next time.
As for the game itself, I like it quite a bit, even though it doesn't do anything that different compared to the previous installments. This time around, the game follows the story from the movie with the same name. That's certainly one of the reasons why I like it more than the last game. You're going to relive some iconic scenes from the movies, which is pretty cool.
Beware! You'll be next, mudbloods.
You'll be next, mudbloods.
Chamber of Secrets is also a better looking game in general, which is not that surprising. It also has a much more detailed version of Hogwarts, which is more fun to explore. This makes the atmosphere in the game really good, that you're going to appreciate a lot more as a Harry Potter fan. This would probably blow my mind back in 2002. Hogwarts is not only better when it comes to the visuals. The level design is a bit more complex, which makes the progression more enjoyable. A lot of these levels feel like dungeons basically, with the puzzle-based objectives. The difficulty of the puzzles went up, although not by a large margin, but still, some of them will make you think a little bit. I also like the platforming segments a lot more in this game, and there is some actual challenge to be had here. The clunky controls are part of the challenge, but again, you don't need some extreme precision here. The jumping mechanic feels great, although the animation for it is pretty silly, especially if you spam the jump button. On the other side, casting spells in this game feels even more basic than in Philosopher's Stone. Every single spell you can cast feels exactly the same, probably because you can only use them on certain objects and in certain situations. You just press the same button when it's required and Harry will cast the appropriate spell. And if I never hear Flipendo again in my life, it will be too much.
Flipendo! 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 Flipendo!
I guess I expected a bit better spell casting system, but it pretty much feels the same like in Philosopher's Stone. It's kind of fun to discover secrets in this game, but I don't think the gameplay feels rewarding. All you get is some beans and cards, which will eventually increase your stamina bar every time you find 10 of them. You can buy some things with the beans, which also don't feel that important. Even increasing your stamina bars is almost irrelevant, because taking damage in this game is very rare. You collect points for Gryffindor, and every once in a while, if your house has the most points, you get a special room full of beans to collect. It's really not that fun to do, to be honest.
How many times have you been in, Potter? Better luck next time.
The Quidditch minigame is back, and it's a bit deeper this time around. Other than that, you'll spend 90% of this game doing different challenges where you need to collect these big ass stars and learn a new spell, which feels exactly the same like all other spells. Overall, I like the level design and the puzzles in the game. It managed to keep me playing for hours until I was done.
Flipendo!
Not bad at all, especially for a game made for a younger audience. Even so, I would only recommend trying this game out if you're a big fan of Harry Potter universe.
Flipendo! Flipendo!
In the late 2003, we got another Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone game. This game was also known as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in United States. I thought this was the same game from 2001 until I did some proper research. This game got released on 3 consoles: Xbox, PlayStation 2 and GameCube. All of these versions are pretty much the same. It's yet another game that I played with PlayStation 2 emulator, and luckily this one works out of the box.
I don't think the fat lady's really fat. She's just big boned.
I didn't have a single technical problem from the beginning to the very end, which was refreshing. Once again, we got a significant boost to the visuals, which is quite apparent from the intro cutscene. This is the first Harry Potter game where character models are not just a bunch of blocks. The character models certainly got the biggest visual boost, but even the environments are more detailed and varied. Although I'm not really sure if I like this version of Hogwarts more or less than Hogwarts from the previous game. But I'll tell you straight away what this game managed to do better. I complained about the collectibles in the previous game and how collecting beans and wizard's cards feels pointless. Well, the Philosopher's Stone does it a bit better, mainly because of the presentation. The way that menu looks and the books you get makes it a bit more exciting when you complete the page full of different wizard cards.
Crispin Kronk, Cyprian Yaudel, Gregory the Smarmy.
You get a short lore behind all of the cards, and it's narrated, which is a nice touch. Harry gets overly excited about every item you loot, which is kinda silly.
A cauldron cake!
One of the dumbest design decisions was to make Harry react to every single bean you collect. It's very annoying.
Yuck! Grass flavour! Peppermint!
On the other side, you won't get to hear Flipendo that often, or any other spell name. Harry only speaks the name of the spells if you charge them, which is a better decision. Speaking of spells, I think this game did a much better job. They still feel extremely similar to previous games, if not identical, but most spells have a couple of different functions. For example, Lumos can light up dark areas, reveal hidden objects and damage ghosts. Using spells is once again highly situational, but it feels way better than the previous game on PC. I'm not sure about the PlayStation version though. Speaking of ghosts, we finally have some proper fights, and you can even call them boss fights. Then again, even those segments of the game have a puzzle-based gameplay where you need to do something gimmicky to beat the enemy. The troll fight is okay the first time it happens, but the second fight is not that fun. Same goes for ghost fights, which the game likes to repeat a lot. There are some more unique enemy types and boss fights, and even though the mechanics are very simple, I like the fact they exist in the game. It's not like some of these fights were not in previous games as well, but the presentation in this game made them feel a bit more important, I guess. What I didn't like are the stupid stealth segments, but they are few and far between. This is also the first game where the camera really bothered me sometimes. You can technically turn your camera with the right thumbstick, but not always and not completely. It kinda has a mind of its own. The area outside of Hogwarts is surprisingly pretty big, although a bit empty. Flying mechanics in this game are decent, and you get to do a Quidditch match close to the end of the game. Flying controls are a bit better this time around, which made these sections of the game a bit more fun. This is another Harry Potter game which closely follows the happenings from the movie. We're back to the first movie though, and we have a bunch of cutscenes that are pretty much identical to the movies, with PlayStation 2 graphics of course.
Troll! In the dungeon! Troll! In the dungeon!
I enjoyed the cutscenes and the story in this game, as well as the puzzle-based gameplay. The quality of puzzles is on par with the previous installments, if not even better. Overall, this game was pretty good, even though it didn't do anything special or unique that we didn't see in the previous installments. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was another installment in the series which came out on multiple platforms. I decided to stick to the PlayStation 2 version for consistency's sake, and getting the controller to work is usually easier like that. There are some notable differences between the PC and console versions of this game. The PC version seems to work very similar to Chamber of Secrets when it comes to casting spells. Once again, I recommend checking out this amazing video from Flandrew if you want to see all the differences. Anyway, the PlayStation 2 version of this game is very good.
50 house points for Gryffindor.
It can also be considered as the last Harry Potter game of its kind, in a way. As we got used to already, this game closely follows the story from the movies. There is a big jump in the quality of animations, and characters have much more detailed face expressions, which the game is not afraid to highlight. Even just in general, the animations are much better compared to the previous game. The Prisoner of Azkaban was a turning point when it comes to the general tone of the movies. Harry Potter movies got a lot darker from this point on, and the game also tries to mimic this tone shift, but not drastically. For example, the outskirts of Hogwarts are definitely much darker than before. This is not my favorite version of Hogwarts, by the way, and I can't put my finger on the exact issue. Maybe just a different vibe, I don't know.
50 house points for Gryffindor.
Putting that aside, the gameplay had some brand new features, which will put an interesting twist to the puzzle-based gameplay. This time around, you're going to control 3 characters at the same time. It's like a party-based RPG, basically. Harry, Ron, and Hermione have different set of skills that you have to utilize while solving different puzzles. They also had different spells to learn throughout the whole game, so you'll have to switch between them quite often. Yeah, now you can switch between these characters with the press of a button. I think something like this was desperately needed because the puzzle-based gameplay was getting kinda stale. Ron can detect hidden walls and expose hidden enemies. Hermione can crawl under tight corridors and use Glacio's spell. Harry is able to climb ropes and pull things and so on, you get the picture. The game frequently requires you to use all of those unique spells in order to beat enemies and solve interesting puzzles. There is a brand new camera mode, which I didn't use a lot, but certainly appreciated. Speaking of camera, we can finally use the right thumbstick like in modern games, but for some reason you can't change the inverted controls, which are on by default.
50 house points for Gryffindor.
I like how the majority of spells have multiple uses in different situations. The puzzles in this game are great, and possibly the best in the series. On top of that, you almost always have a big fight at the end of dungeons, which require you to use what you just learned. Compared to boss fights in previous games, these fights have a bit more complexity. They were still simple enough, interesting and fun. We have some brand new enemy types that you're going to fight. You can kill most of them with a default Jinx attacking spell, while some of them require you to use a specific spell from one of the characters. You get to ride a Buckbeak for the first time ever, and the flying mechanics are pretty good, much better than before. You'll get to do some quests outside, and flying is usually necessary for specific quests. We got some brand new side activities, like the All Race, although it's kinda stupid to be honest. Overall, The Prisoner of Azkaban is in my top 3 Harry Potter games.
Not bad. You might want to get a little more practice. I'll give you a C for trying.
50 house points for Gryffindor.
Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire came out in 2005 for PC and pretty much all 6th generation consoles. The differences between the PC and console versions are almost non-existent, except the graphics, which are obviously the best on PC. Once again, I played this game through PlayStation 2 emulation, and I think it's one of the worst games I've had the displeasure to play in recent memory. And if you guys watch my videos, you know I cover some pretty bad games in my Hidden Gems or Trash series, so I don't say this lightly. The Goblet of Fire has so many problems, and I don't even know where to start. How about with the new artistic style? This is the first Harry Potter game that looks a lot different than all other games in the series, so far at least. And not in a good way, if you ask me. I would even argue that The Prisoner of Azkaban looks better in general, especially when it comes to animations. This game has some very blurry textures and a much darker art style in general. Having a darker artistic style makes sense, but the game just doesn't look very good, it's that simple. The same can be said about the cutscenes, unfortunately. And it only gets worse from here because we need to talk about the gameplay.
Orbit! Abbot Force!
Wingardium Leviosa!
Once again, we get to control 3 characters, but this time around we get some actual co-op features. I obviously played in single player mode, and after seeing what this game has to offer, I don't really think I missed a lot by not trying the co-op mode. Luckily for me, the AI can be so bad in this game that it made me feel like I'm actually playing with some of my dumb friends. I hope they're watching this. The Goblet of Fire took a very different approach to game design, and not in a good way. It's a very linear game where you go through different levels, which feel very disconnected. The game also follows the story from Goblet of Fire movie, which was to be expected. However, I think that previous games did a much better job with the storytelling. When it comes to the gameplay, I almost quit the game a couple of times because of the terrible camera. I think I have a very high tolerance when it comes to bad camera and bad mechanics in general, so this can tell you a lot about the game. I mean, just take a look at some of these angles and tell me they are not headache-inducing. Then we have the very floaty control scheme, which makes controlling the characters like driving a car. It's very clumsy. The quality of spellcasting mechanics also took a nosedive. Everything that previous games established is gone. There is no open world exploration or exploration of any kind, as a matter of fact. You just go through linear levels and solve some pretty mediocre puzzles. The levels have some wiggle room, which allows you to collect more items, and this is mandatory activity, it's not optional. That's because the game has this wonderful idea about collecting enough shields to unlock the next level. You're probably never going to collect enough shields on your first run, which means that you have to repeat the level and find more shields. It's so fucking stupid and not fun at all. It's an extremely stupid and cheap way to artificially prolong the game. Casting spells together looks kinda cool, and the physics system comes close to being fun in some moments.
Guardium Leviosa!
Besides that, the gameplay is totally devoid of fun. You spam a couple of spells to beat most enemies, or do something specific on the level which is needed to progress further. Well, assuming you find enough stupid shields to unlock the next level. The closest to having fun in this game was this level where the dragon is chasing you. Believe it or not, I was just holding the R1 button to go faster, I didn't touch other buttons at all, and I still won. I did die a couple of times, but the game just resets to the checkpoint with the full health bar. It's so badly designed that it almost left me speechless. On the other side, I gained a lot more respect for previous games in the series. I was so disappointed with this game and I couldn't wait to quit. There was no way in hell I was going to finish this game without going flipendo.
Guardium Leviosa!
Guardium Leviosa! Orbit!
Orbit!
Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix came out in 2007, and as you could probably guess by now, it's pretty much on all gaming platforms. The PC and the console versions are pretty much the same, so it's not that fun like some of the earlier games with many different versions. However, this is the first HD Harry Potter game, which came out on 7th generation of consoles, as well as the PC. I played the PlayStation 3 version, but I also check out the PC version as well. First of all, this game is not as bad as the Goblet of Fire, but it's also not that good. Actually, I think this is the perfect definition of a mediocre game for a couple of reasons. Let's start with the positive things first and break the monotony a little bit. The Order of Phoenix reintroduces a more open-ended gameplay design, like in older Harry Potter games. We have an amazing version of Hogwarts, and it's very impressive to explore, find some secret passages, and just wandering around these halls aimlessly can be fun for a while. It's obvious they put a lot of work into making the Hogwarts look like this, and it holds up great even today. The artistic style has a more realistic look to it, and I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it lacks the charm of older Harry Potter games, and it looks a bit bland. I love how the staircase have a more complex movement compared to previous games, which is cool. There are a bunch of cutscenes throughout the whole game, and I like them quite a bit. Harry is a bit jumpy in this game, like he's always on the edge.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because Lord Voldemort's back.
That is a lie.
Great. Voldemort's on the move and Fudge is as good as helping him. What are we supposed to do?
He seems very pissed off in almost all dialogue situations. We can't control the camera with the right stick, which is total bullshit. I mean, come on, we're in 2007 now, what's with all the static camera angles in a third-person game? Although to be fair, the camera in this game is not as annoying like in Goblet of Fire, not even close. Surprisingly, it works great when you cast spells. So what about that part of the gameplay? Well, the Order of Phoenix tries to do something completely different. You have to use your right analog stick in various ways in order to cast different spells. Yeah, that was the main reason why we can't use the right thumbstick for camera controls. It's reserved for casting spells in a way that we never had before in previous Harry Potter games. I actually think the core of this system is pretty good. It's way more precise than I expected, and I rarely miss the button input for casting the spell.
Expelliarmus! Well done!
Maybe that's because the PS5 controller has more precise controls than DualShock 3, I don't know. That being said, the biggest problem with this game are the quests and the progression system. To put it simply, it's very, very boring and it feels unfinished.
$50 house points for Gryffindor.
You're literally doing a bunch of chores with your spells all around the castle. It's one of the most boring quests you'll ever going to experience, which is the last thing you want in such a creative world of magic. Not to mention the constant backtracking and walking you have to do, which is fun for a while, like I said before. But it quickly becomes boring when you already saw everything and did a bunch of not so creative side activities. How about making beds or carpets? Does that sound magical to you?
Depulso!
The minigames are okay, especially when it comes to chess, which is more than okay, it's great. But it's not about the substance of the minigames, they feel just as pointless as the main activities. Even calling them the main activities is kinda funny, because they all feel like bunch of busy work you can find in many RPGs and action adventures. The puzzle gameplay is also not that great, to put it lightly. Come to think of it, it's almost non-existing. There is a greater focus on the fundamental spellcasting mechanics than on actual puzzles and the quests you have to do. They're just a bunch of fetch quests and meaningless activities that will almost put you to sleep once you do a couple of them. It's a shame because the game had a very solid core mechanics that could have been way more interesting. Even collecting points feels pointless because the only rewards you get are some of the behind the scenes development cutscenes and something similar. So yeah, I think this game is just very mediocre and very boring after a while. Unlike the Goblet of Fire, it had a lot of potential, but ultimately it felt boring and unfinished.
How are you? Okay.
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince came out in 2009 for PC and all consoles. This game tried to build upon the previous one when it comes to the core gameplay mechanics. But unlike the Order of Phoenix, it's a lot shorter because it has a lot more linear design. Not in a bad way though. You're just going from one quest to another with very little downtime in between. I think Half-Blood Prince looks way better than the previous game, and they put a lot of work into character models. Harry looks almost identical like in the movie. And just in general, I like the colors in this game a lot more than in the previous game. Even though technically the previous game was the first HD Harry Potter game, the Half-Blood Prince feels like it should have the title. The fidelity is noticeably much better in general, and the quality of textures went up quite a bit, especially when you upscale the image in the emulator to Full HD or 4K. Putting that aside, I didn't have high hopes for this game, but I was kinda surprised. I did enjoy my time with this game, even though it was very short. And come to think of it, that was probably one of the reasons why I did enjoy it. Like I said, the Half-Blood Prince is more linear compared to the previous game, and you can finish it in a couple of sittings. The open nature of the previous game is gone, and a lot of rooms in Hogwarts are closed. However, the quests you do in this game are much more interesting now, and they closely follow the story from the movies. Once again, we have a lot of cinematics, and they're okay. The gameplay in this game is focused on wizard duels, potion making minigame, which is pretty good actually, and a couple of Quidditch games.
That wasn't so bad.
In fact, the game opens up with a flying section that's on rails, very similar to the Goblet of Fire, but it's a bit more fun this time around. The concept for Quidditch matches is pretty much the same like in old Harry Potter games, with some additional features like avoiding obstacles. I like it, it's simple and fun for what it is. I also like the wizarding duels, which is the main focus of the gameplay, basically. There are like mini tournaments where you can beat everyone and become a champion. The game also throws at you a lot of wizard duels during the story as well. I like the mechanics, and in the beginning, the stronger opponents can be a bit challenging. Once you unlock a powerful spell, you can cheese a lot of these fights, but other than that, I think they work fine. The potion mixing minigame could have been a standalone phone game, it's pretty good. It gets more complex as you progress, adding more motion moves that you have to do with your right thumbstick. Speaking of the right thumbstick, would you look at that, we can finally control the camera with the right thumbstick. You need to hold down R2 first, but still, it's way better than not having it. Now we can finally run as well, which will be useful since 70% of this game is going from point A to point B. Although to be fair, there are a lot of convenient shortcuts you can take in this game. You can collect crests all around the place by using your basic spells, and it's a kind of fun distraction you can do along the way.
Wingardium Leviosa!
I don't have a lot of things to say about this game other than that. You know what, if you take this game and mix it up with the Order of Phoenix, we would get a pretty decent open world Harry Potter game. They share a lot of the same gameplay mechanics. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out in late 2010 for PC and 7th gen consoles. First thing I tried was the PS3 version through emulation, and it just didn't work at all. It won't even start for me. Then I tried the 360 version and it works, kinda. The sound will just randomly cut off and my controller will vibrate like crazy all the time. I managed to find the PC version because the game is abandonware. And get this, the PC version is locked on 30 FPS for some stupid reason. There is a 60 FPS patch you can download, and you should watch this video if you wanna do that. Hear me out though, this game is pure trash and you should not bother at all. It has a lot of half-baked and poorly designed gameplay mechanics, which made me really angry at times. Deathly Hallows is basically a third-person shooter with cover mechanics that you find in, well, third-person shooters. Yeah, amazing idea. The game begins with a cool Voldemort cutscene which resembles the real scene from the movies. Right after that, you're thrown into the flying scene from the movie where you need to kill a bunch of Death Eaters and it takes way too long. This is the first time you can choose the difficulty in the game and I played on hard. I don't know how much difference it makes, but there you go. As for the combat, you just lock in and start spamming the right trigger like crazy. You can't actually see your health, which is stupid. Then you get to learn the cover mechanics, and even though they're stupid, they work fine to be honest. In the first hour of the game, you're going to kill more NPCs than in previous 5 games combined. Shortly after this, the game introduces a ridiculously bad stealth segment and they double down on this feature further down the line. When you switch the perspective to first person, your FOV becomes very small, which makes it harder to see things in general. There is a stealth meter, I guess, which constantly goes down when you start walking and you need to take a break every now and then. If you bump into someone, you'll immediately get exposed. This doesn't sound like the worst stealth system ever, but the way they design the stealth missions is ridiculously bad. Take this one for example. You need to enter 6 different rooms in order to complete the mission. It doesn't matter in which order, you just need to visit all 6 rooms for the quest to be completed. I hate quests in this game with a burning passion. Then you get all of these bullshit filler missions, basically. Their mission objectives are even worse, believe it or not. You either have to kill a bunch of Death Eaters, save some people, or how about this, run away from the dragon. The dragon that can hit you before he even starts the fire-breathing animation because the game is so ahead of its time. I don't know if that joke landed, but there is nothing funny about this fucking game. Actually, I take that back. What the hell happened with Harry's face? Hagrid from Philosopher's Stone looked better than this.
Hello, Harry, it's me, Hagrid.
I was just praising the graphics of the last game and how they managed to make a great lifelike Harry Potter. Using spells in this game feel like different guns, basically. The duels in Half-Blood Prince were more enjoyable for me. Although the action in this game feels a bit faster, which is by itself a bit more fun. None of that matters when you have such poor mission design and underdeveloped features all around. Don't even bother with this one, it's pure trash. So what about the sequel? Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out in 2011 for PC and 7th gen consoles. This game is also a pain in the butt to try and run properly today, unless you have the original hardware and CDs. I had no luck with the PC or the PlayStation 3 emulator version, so I was kinda forced to play the Xbox 360 emulator. The gameplay works fine, but there are a bunch of sound glitches throughout the whole game and some visual glitches as well. As for the game itself, well, it's very similar to the first part of Deathly Hallows, if not a bit better. To put it simply, I didn't hate it as much as the first part, but that ain't saying much.
Ah! I'll get ya! I'll get ya!
They double down on the third-person shooter cover mechanics, which is quite obvious from the very beginning. For example, your crosshair will get bigger if you just spam the attacks, which is a classic shooter mechanic. Literally every spell you get in this game can be compared to some guns from first-person shooters or third-person shooters. It's almost like Call of Duty with wands, and even the action is turned up to 11. Apart from some very boring and slow missions like this one, you're constantly going to kill a ton of Death Eaters and some other NPCs. I guess the biggest difference when it comes to spells is the lack of weapon, I mean spell wheel from the last game. All spells are binded to different buttons and some of them have to be accessed with double tapping the button. To be fair, I did enjoy the action gameplay in this game way more than in the first parts. But every mission in this game constantly drags on by multiplying the same f***ing objective. What makes it even crazier is the general length of the game. It's probably the shortest game in the series, you can finish it in about 2 or 3 hours. Some mechanics don't make a lot of sense to me, like the shield spell, especially when enemies use it. I mean, they just stand there like morons, waiting for you to dispel it and do damage to them. Why would they do that when they can just go in the cover is anyone's guess. I like the sniper spell though, but the mission on the bridge when you get to use it a lot is so annoying. Like I said, the game just repeats the same set pieces in a slightly different way. Overall, it's a very short game with some glimpses of fun here and there, but ultimately extremely mediocre at best. Hogwarts Legacy came out in 2023 for PC and current-gen consoles. This is the first game in this video which is not based on Harry Potter movies. Well, not directly at least. And to be honest, it's not exactly a good fit for this video. But, as you probably already know, it's hands down the best game in Harry Potter universe that you can play. After some very mediocre and disappointing games in this series, Harry Potter fans got an amazing open world RPG. I played Hogwarts Legacy when it came out and I had plans to do a full review. Unfortunately that never happened because I had to finish some other projects first. This game deserves its own big review, which I'll probably do in the future.
It seems that we are in dire need of review!
I still have my old save file from the first playthrough, which I continue playing for the purposes of this video, but I also started a brand new game. I wanted to get a fresh experience, especially in the early game, because there are a lot of things I don't remember. First of all, I think this game looks freaking amazing all around. I think Harry Potter games lost their charm after Prisoner of Azkaban. None of the games after that managed to capture that Harry Potter vibe, I guess, but Hogwarts Legacy brings it back in a major way. They managed to nail the art style, which is something in between stylized and realistic. The character models have a distinctive and memorable look, especially more important characters. But the best part about the visuals is Hogwarts itself and the open world in general. Hogwarts is jam-packed with visual detail and the scale of it is just simply amazing. We're back to the open world design, and this time around it's a true open world game with little to no compromises. Which brings us back to the beginning of the game. The only section of the game which is on rails is the beginning tutorial section and introduction to the setting and the plots. Even though I think this tutorial by itself is great, because it teaches you almost everything you need to know about basic mechanics, I still don't like long, linear tutorials in open world games. It's about 50 minutes long on average, and then you're free to explore these magical open worlds. You begin the game as a student who started Hogwarts in the 5th year, which is unheard of. The main character has a special kind of ancient magic, which threatens the stability of the wizarding worlds. Some people, or goblins to be more precise, are trying to harness the power of that magic. There is an amazing cutscene in the beginning of the game with a dragon that almost kills the player and his mentor, Professor Fig. Before all of that, you can customize your character with a great character customization system. The story managed to keep my attention, but I still can't give you my full opinion about it because I didn't finish it.
Well done! This is sure to impress Ranrock.
I'm pretty sure I'm very close to the end with this playthrough though. I love the characters and how the quests are done in general. I also like how you get new spells, and some quests require you to have specific spells in order to progress further. This means that you have to do a specific quest in order to unlock the new spell that you need. Dungeons and open world exploration also work like this. You can check what you need in order to progress through a specific dungeon, which is pretty cool. But even so, you're not restricted to explore the open world either on foot or by flying around. I love how the flying feels in this game, and combined with a great open world, the exploration really feels amazing and rewarding. This game does such a great job with referencing the old Harry Potter games in various ways. For example, the minigame for learning new spells reminds me a lot of the minigame from the Philosopher's Stone, and Chamber of Secrets, as a matter of fact. The user interface has an amazing presentation, which not only does a great job of tracking your progress in many different areas of the game, but it also rewards you with some special items every now and then. Collecting items and doing side activities never felt better in a Harry Potter game. And obviously, we have some great puzzles and platforming in Hogwarts Legacy as well. Last couple of games in Harry Potter series completely disregarded the puzzle-based gameplay, but Hogwarts Legacy reintroduces them. Combined with an amazing presentation and decent amount of challenge, these segments of the game managed to be very fun for me. Hogwarts Legacy has a proper third-person action combat system, but it doesn't make the game into a third-person cover shooter, imagine that. You have regular wand attacks and well-known spells, and each and every one of them are useful in different situations, in and out of combats. The spells are color-coded, which makes it easy to know which spell to use in combat when you need them. For example, if your enemy has a purple shield, you can use one of your purple damaging spells to get rid of it. Combining spells in combat never felt better in a Harry Potter game. There is a special bar for ancient magic, and when you get to use it, it does a great deal of damage.
You can do.
You can also use the environment to your advantage in a lot of situations, and you have to dodge, block, or parry enemy attacks. The stealth system is pretty good and a bit OP sometimes, but it's very fun to one-shot unaware enemies. There is a great attention to detail in pretty much all styles of combat and the game in general. For example, your character will whisper spells while in stealth, which is a pretty nice touch. Or how about blocking the troll rock attack and throwing it back on other enemies? Yeah, you can do that, and the combat has a very nice flow to it. It's almost like a dance with enemies when you do it right. On top of the spells that you get to unlock, you also get different talent trees, where you get to invest leveling up points. I mean, we could talk more in depth about every major feature, but this video will turn into Hogwarts Legacy review, which I plan to do, like I said before. Overall, Hogwarts Legacy is a huge love letter to all Harry Potter fans.
I'm sure I'll be seeing you around, either in our common room or when you scale your next tower.
You never know. Bye for now.
That will be all Harry Potter games I wanted to cover in this video. This series started off pretty good, and it had a nice run with the first couple of games. Unfortunately, it all started going downhill from there, which is not surprising because most movie games are just terrible cash grabs. Some of these games showed great potential, while some of them are just mediocre at best. The series almost ended with a couple of terrible Call of Duty-like games, but Hogwarts Legacy finally came out and saved the day. That game basically pays homage to other Harry Potter games, but it also does so much more than that. Tell me, did you play any of these games and which one was your favorite? Leave a comment down below.
Go home to your mother, Potter.
This video took a bit longer to make since there are so many games to cover. If you like the video, subscribing to the channel would be much appreciated. And if you want to become a channel member or a Patreon, all the links are down below. Huge thanks to all of my current supporters, and I'll see you in the next one.